What is going on? Jets Roundtable, AFC East Roundtable. I'm live on the Jets Roundtable with my bro, Matt O'Leary. We're finally able to break down the draft class instead of talking about what they will do. Matt and I did so many mock drafts together on this show, and I'm excited to get Matt's thoughts of the entirety of the NFL draft class for the New York Jets and, of course, the undrafted free agents and how this Jets team stacks up within a division. So, Matt, welcome back to the Jets Roundtable, my man. We had a week off because last week was the draft. So how you been, bro?
I've been great. It was a busy day last Thursday for myself, Ryan, Jake Asman, you. So we needed the day off to prepare for night one. But the draft party was a success. The streams went amazing. So as you know, it's a long weekend of streaming, but once you're through on the other side, it feels really good. So I'm excited to break it all down with you and chop it up.
Absolutely, man. Definitely excited for that. I saw that the event went extremely well over there at the main event. Was definitely tuned in. I realized going to MetLife Stadium as a creator is not ideal. It was
That's
not fun to be there. Love being there, but from a content creator standpoint of like going live on my phone, the Knicks playoffs are on, they kick us out after the Jets made a pick. I was like, oh my God, I'm in my car after I came and watched the rest of the draft. It was fun though. Me and Jack had a great time, but it seemed like you guys at the event went pretty well, right?
Oh, it was a blast. The crowd cam reaction led to some pretty epic responses. You had Jeremy Jets Chaos and proud NY Jet fans Nick Shine do the belly bump. Neil from Garden City lights up the cigar inside after the Jets make their pick. Just pure chaos as you would expect. Really good group. We had like 70 people come out and hang out with us. The food was amazing. Main event really did a nice job for us. So we were happy with it. I'm sure we'll be back there again next year.
Electricity, baby, on Long Island, represent. So let's get straight into business, man. Shout out to everybody tuning in. We're live on the AFC East Roundtable. Matt and I will be breaking down the New York Jets and maybe some thoughts of the rest of the division, what they look like in the NFL draft, guys. Don't forget to hit the like button on your way in. If you're watching us live on YouTube or watching us live on X, we appreciate you guys tuning into the show. Now, Matt, first reaction, man. The draft class is here. And here it is on your screen now. The full 2024 class is here. And, bro, I've been getting called a homer because all I'm doing is praising this class. And I'm, like, trying to be objective, Matt. But I love everything about this class. Now, are there a few head scratchers? Yeah. Okay. In the back end of the draft, why do they draft two running backs? Definitely interesting standpoints on that. But especially when you look at the first four picks, I mean, we talked about it on this show many times. How many times did I say, I want Jordan Travis? How many times did we say, I want Braelon Allen? Okay, and the fact that they got both those guys in the mid-rounds was very, very fortunate for me as a fan and a lot of Jets fans around the world. So what's your overall reaction as a class entirely before we go into each individual prospect?
Yeah, so overall as a class, I think it's solid. It was a solid draft for me. Got a B plus. I think from top to bottom, they added some much needed offensive talent at wide receiver, at offensive line. Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler. Those are the three names Jet fans talked about a ton as wanting to add as a mid-round developmental quarterback. They get that guy, and I think Braelon Allen's going to really complement Breece Hall well. So just overall, I thought there was a lot of positives to take away from it. Yes, there's some things I'm sure we'll get into, some things that I didn't like about it, but I don't know if it's going to be regarded in that same class as like the 2022 draft class, because that is just so unique in a class of its own. But I think we'll look back in a few years and there'll be a couple nice starters, a couple nice depth pieces. And really that's, that'll be looked at as a solid class for the Jets.
Is there anybody that stands out to you to be like the sleeper of this class that not a lot of people are talking about, or like who do you think is going to make the most impact not only this season but for the foreseeable future that not a lot of people are talking about?
Yeah, I think the obvious one is Olu because not this year. Necessarily, I don't think he's going to be starting 17 games. I think we'll see him though because both tackles are 33 years old and there's injury concern. I really. There's a chance that it could be Jordan Travis if I'm trying to come up with like another name, because to me, the Olu jumps out as the most obvious one. He was a first round pick. But if I'm trying to come up with another name, this class looks entirely different if Jordan Travis hits and ends up being a starting quarterback for the New York Jets. Then it's, oh my God, you got a really nice receiver, you got an RB2, you got your left tackle of the future, and you also got your franchise quarterback in the 5th round. So he would be my answer for the surprise and raising the ceiling of this class.
And what are your thoughts of Jordan Travis as a prospect? Like, what do you like from him? Like, what qualities do you feel like that Jets fans should know about that maybe they don't really know about based off your research and any insight that you got when you studied Jordan Travis as a prospect before they even drafted him?
Yeah, so for me, I think his biggest strength is his legs and how he utilizes himself as a runner, not necessarily just tucking it and running, which he does very well. I think he had 7 touchdowns each of the last 3 years, I want to say. But just his escapability when there's pressure, like that really matters. Unfortunately, the quarterbacks the Jets were running out there the last couple of years, whether it was like Mike White, Joe Flacco, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, they got sacked a lot because they're not very mobile quarterbacks. They were kind of statues in the pocket. With Zach Wilson, when he faced pressure, he would bail out and run like backwards and do those spins and take big sacks. But with Jordan Travis, like he's not afraid to step up in the pocket and maneuver that way. As a potential downside with him, and like obviously there's a reason why he went on day 3 and wasn't a number 1 quarterback taken. My biggest concern or question mark with him is his arm strength and how that will translate at the next level. We know he's really athletic, but he doesn't have the strongest of arms. And I read and saw some scouts say that they don't know if he has an NFL arm or not. I wouldn't classify his arm as a strength. I don't think it's that bad to the point where he's not going to be playable, but that's something that I think we're going to have to keep an eye on in training camp and in preseason games over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think my favorite part about him as a prospect is his overall natural ability to be knowledgeable of the game of football in terms of his high football IQ. I feel like he just has a unique ability to understand this game. And then you might be like, yeah, well, he has to know the game to be in the NFL. I don't know. You've seen a lot of quarterbacks get drafted and they got all this physical talent, but they can't figure it out mentally. I just feel like he is a natural born leader as well. And I also think that him sitting behind Aaron and Tyrod, not only from the physical standpoint, a figure cleaning up his footwork and all that, but from a mental rep standpoint, it's going to really benefit him as a prospect of developing for the long haul, right? I wanted the Jets to get a quarterback in this year's draft. We talked about it. It was really between Travis and Pratt that I thought was the most likely to be a New York Jet. Pratt going so late, man. He dropped to Green Bay.
Yeah, not a good day for the Pratt boys or
the Pratt Pioneer.
Yeah, the Pratt Pioneers. There we go. Yeah, it was sweating that one out a little bit. Unfortunately, though, not going to be tweeting about Michael Pratt to the end of time now and talking about how it was a big mistake that the Jets passed up on him. But that was a surprise. But yeah, we wanted a developmental quarterback at some point, and Travis was a very popular name. And I think at least the first 4 picks from this Jets draft class, they went with guys that we all talked about and we knew. Like Fashanu was someone that, I mean, if you remember when the Jets beat Washington and New England at the end of the year, people were pissed because they were going to miss out on Olu or Joe Alt. Unfortunately, Joe Alt goes 5 overall, but Olu ends up being there for you in a trade down at pick number 11. And then Malachi Corley is, really dynamic player, exciting with the ball in his hands. Braelon Allen, another one who we didn't really touch on yet, but just a bowling ball, can run people over, really big and explosive. So for me, I really like the first 4 picks a lot. After that, the last 3 are hit or miss for me.
Now, I want to get your thoughts more about Olu because you were very consistent on your stance heading into the draft that your team offensive line rather than weapon. And after the Jets were not able to trade up, it seemed like they were aggressive to get a Neighbors or Roma Dunze, and none of the 3 wide receivers were on the board. The Jets did pretty much what a lot of Jets fans wanted them to do: trade down, get more capital, and take an offensive lineman over, say, a Brock Bowers. And the one thing I have to say about people that are complaining that we are having another first-round pick on the bench is, why are we turning that to a negative, Matt? Because do you remember the days when the first-round pick for this Jets football team is the star of the team? and he is the only guy we're like excited about. Like, oh, look at Jamal Adams as a rookie. Yeah, let's go see what he does. Or like, that's the stud of the team, our first round pick. Do people not realize that the fact that the Jets don't need our first round pick to start is a positive because of how good the team is? I mean, I don't know about you, but I think that's a good thing. I'm not saying like, yeah, bench people for the future, like bench the first round pick. Obviously, I want to see Olu on the field, but I hate that people are spinning it into a negative thing and without realizing that the reason why they're not starting is because this Jets roster is complete and it's the best it's ever been in our lives.
Yeah, that's a really good way to look at it because it is a really deep roster. And I think people are trying to compare it to Will McDonald last year, which I don't think is really fair at all. I mean, going into the NFL draft, everyone was comfortable with the Jets edge group. And sure, we later learned that it was a pick because they weren't going to end up, bringing back Bryce Huff. And then they end up moving on from John Franklin Myers this offseason. But to me, it's not really comparable to last year at all because they don't have long-term answers. Oh, I love that swap. That's beautiful. Look at that. But they don't have,
man.
The new uniform is so good. They don't have long-term answers at the tackle spot. Number one, Tyron Smith on a 1-year deal, Morgan Moses on the last year of his deal that they acquired via trade. But also both those guys are 33 and missed games last year. Tyron Smith hasn't played a healthy season in almost a decade. If you get 13 games out of him, that'll be amazing. And for Morgan Moses, love the guy. I'm happy he's back, but he had a torn pectoral and had off-season surgery and is another year older now. So I really think that Olu is going to get on the field. If I had to guess right now, again, way too early prediction, but I think he ends up starting 8 to 10 games between left and right tackle. So it's at a really important position. I didn't mind at all that they went offensive line over Brock Bowers.
Yeah, and I'll never forget early in the draft process for me, and I think like I could be wrong, but even you and I talking about the draft way early in this process, Olu was the guy we talked about. Like I remember the first guy I did my homework on for the Jets when we found out that they got the 10th overall pick was Olu. And I'm like, oh, that would be sick if we can get the left tackle for the future or pass protection. And then it was interesting how throughout the draft process, his name kind of just got like, it disappeared. I feel like the draft hype for him fell away. We saw, Joe Alt, Latham all of a sudden was skyrocketing, Troy Fatanu, Talisi Fuanga, like all these guys were getting all this praise. And then Olu was just like there that no one really talked about, which I found interesting. And I think the Jets reaped the benefits of it. They obviously loved him as a prospect from his pass protection. And he always reminded me of a DeBrickashaw Ferguson. Now, please, if he's DeBrick, the main thing we need from our left tackle outside of just playing good is being healthy.
Yeah.
Because what was Mekhi Becton's issue even when we drafted him? Boom or bust. I don't think Olu is a boom or bust. I think he's more like a safe pick at that left tackle spot. And if you look at it from the standpoint, Mekhi Becton was the first pick from Joe Douglas's career here. He's a bust. He's now a Philadelphia Eagle. He's no longer a Jet. Now we replace Olu. And also don't forget that left tackle is a position that you got to pay a lot of money if you want to have a good left tackle. Well, now the Jets hopefully if Olu figures himself out and can be the starter for this left tackle for the next 5 years, we now have a cheap option at left tackle, which is going to open up the financial aspect of this team for the long term, being able to pay guys like Sauce, who wants to be a Jet for life, right? I think that's something that people are undervaluing in terms of now we don't have to look after a veteran left tackle again next year by re-signing Smith or going after a big fish at tackle that's going to really hurt the books. Now that we have a cheap left tackle for the next 5 years, that's something not a lot of people are realizing in terms of the financial aspect of it too.
Yeah, the financial point is going to play a really big factor in this because, as you said, cheap in comparison to what you'd be paying a top-end tackle. The Jets got a pretty good deal on Tyron Smith on a 1-year deal because of the injury concern. If he was fully healthy and if he's, which very rarely happens, like tackles, it's very rare that good tackles hit the market without some sort of red flag, whether it be injury concern or whatever, because teams pay them. Your goal is to find a good left tackle, pay them, and keep them for a long time. I really hope we see Olu come in, play at a high level, and be this team's next, left tackle for the next 12 years or so.
Down for that. Lascelles, great member of the Roundtable. Talk about what Colby said, Richie. Guess we have to bring that back up. Colby, the Patriots representative, Patriots Global, last night in the Roundtable, Matt, we got into a heated debate. He was saying that
Okay.
the Jets should have went with Bowers, and he felt like Bowers is more of a short-term win-now move, and he would have been a more better option for the Jets from a weapon standpoint over the offensive line, who is more long-term. And you got into a heated debate about that. I know where you stand on it, so I don't really like. I know exactly where you're going to go with it because we've been talking about it even before the draft. But Colby was definitely his thing is that he thinks our tight ends stink. He thinks Tyler Conklin is not a tight end number one. I brought up Jeremy Ruckert's name. He laughed. And that was getting me pissed off. I'm like, bro, you're completely undervaluing our tight ends. And he kept thinking that we needed an upgrade, and tight end is a big weakness on the team when left tackle was not a big weakness when we have Smith.
I understand the people who wanted to draft Brock Bowers, right? Like, and I said that for months leading up to the draft. If that's the route that the Jets go, I get it. And yes, Bowers would have been an upgrade to this team, but to count out Tyler Conklin, who had 620 yards with the worst quarterback room in the league, I don't know. For me, I always thought that Jeremy Ruckert as tight end 2 and Tyler Conklin as tight end 1 with Aaron Rodgers is going to look significantly different than what it did this past year with Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, or Trevor Siemian. I'm not saying that, Conklin's the best tight end in the league or a top 5 tight end or anything like that, but is he good enough where he could be a starter on a very good team? I think yes. It wouldn't shock me at all if he's putting I don't know, 650 to 800 yards, depending on where, the targets are spread around, and maybe like 6 or 7 touchdowns in the red zone with Rodgers. Rodgers likes those tight ends. So I think we see much more production from him this year. So I think he's actually underrating Tyler Conklin a little bit.
I agree. And I that. And you see the offensive weapons here that Aaron Rodgers has to play with. I mean, looks pretty darn good to me, man. I mean, you talk about, and this is, I don't want to say, like, people are saying, what about Lazard, Richie? All right, sorry. I left off Lazard in the graphic, Matt. I mean, come on, really?
I don't blame you for leaving him off. I like the 3 wide look instead with Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and Malachi Corley. That's a lot more appealing.
So what's your thoughts of the weapons now after the draft is wrapped up? We got Malachi Corley and Braelon Allen as the new additions from the draft. From a playmaker standpoint, we, of course, have Garrett and Brees leading the way. The addition of Mike Williams. We got Conklin and Ruckert. How do you think the Jets have built around Aaron Rodgers just from a playmaking standpoint, not even considering the offensive line?
I think they need Mike Williams to be healthy. So like my one little fear, and it's little, I'm not saying it's a big thing, is Mike Williams' health going into the year. Because if he is healthy, pairing him with Garrett Wilson, Malachi Corley is really, really good. If he has one bad week and then unfortunately isn't good to go at the start of the year, and it is Allen Lazard in that spot over a Mike Williams or a Jason Brownlee, like one of their outside receivers, I'm not as confident in it. Garrett's going to get his. We know, how good he is. Malachi, I think, is going to be used more of a gadget guy. I expect him to have a role in this offense, but like, I don't think he's going to come into league and be like a number 1 guy right away. That's not fair expectations for, a 3rd round pick. I think he's a good complementary piece, but I definitely think it's, it would be a touch concerning if Mike Williams isn't healthy, but if he is, that's a very good group.
So real quick with the wide receivers, who do you see making the team? Right, you see the roster right now heading into OTAs. Obviously, all the people listed are not making the 53-man roster. Last year, the Jets had 2 undrafted free agents in Brownlee and Gibson making the roster. The Jets got 2 more undrafted free agents this year in Marcus Riley and Tyler Harrell. They still got Malik Taylor, right? They still got Irvin Charles, who's a special teams guy, especially with the departure of Justin Hardy. You can say that Charles has a chance to make the roster from a special teams standpoint. What's your early prediction on this wide receiver room in terms of how many they're holding on to? 5, 6, and who are those people?
So Garrett, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley, Allen Lazard is 4. I think you're gonna also get Gibson and Irv Charles as the 6th, potentially over Jason Brownlee. And I think Irv Charles gets it because of his special teams prowess. Losing Justin Hardy was a really big loss this offseason, but we saw Irv Charles get some reps on special teams last year in his absence. So I would think he makes the team, not so much as that he's going to be a pass catcher, a heavy pass catcher in this offense, but because they need him on specials. So my guess right now is 6, and it would be those 6 with unfortunately Jason Brownlee not being on the roster.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. And you look at what the starting offense looks like potentially, man. I mean, you look at that offensive line. You look at Corley being added. What do you think Malachi Corley is going to bring, bro? Because this is a guy that the Jets, my favorite thing about the Malachi Corley pick, Matt, is that the Jets wanted him. He was their guy. And the fact that they got their guy makes me really believe that they, I would hope, have a plan for, right? Talking to you, Hackett, right? Like, I feel like I'm hoping that the fact that they wanted him and now they're not like getting a guy that fell to them, like, all right, let's figure out a plan for this guy. I'm hopeful that they wanted Corley for a reason, because they have a plan for him to really take flight immediately and have a really good rookie season. I have high expectations for Corley to hit the ground running. Not saying he should be offensive rookie of the year, but I think he's built and he has the right mindset and has that play style that he can plug in as a rookie and provide immediate impact for this Jets offense. So what do you think Corley is going to add to the dynamic with Aaron Rodgers and Wilson and Williams and all the rest of the boys?
So I think Malachi Corley is going to become like a check down favorite. If Rodgers is getting some pressure coming his way, I think they're going to, check it down to him. You're going to have to do some design screens and actually like design a good screen for a change, because again, his strength, he's called the Yak King for a reason. You just want to get him the ball in his hands and get him in space and let him do his thing yards after the catch. Is he someone who's going to catch a lot of balls, 20 plus yards down the field? I would bet no. Maybe that develops later in his career, but end arounds, maybe line him up in the backfield with Breece Hall too. Like, why not? I think you have to get really creative with him. Similar, but a better version of, like, remember Ty Montgomery started as a wide receiver and then was also kind of like a running back. Like, like a souped up version of him. You got to get creative with it. And I think there's a world that Aaron Rodgers likes that kind of player and can make him a useful player. Again, do I think he's going to put up 1,000 yards this year? No. No. I wish, I hope he does. Please, someone, if he does, clip this and make fun of me. I'd gladly take the L on that. But I don't know. Can he give you 400 to 500 and be like what you were expecting Mecole Hardman to be for you last year? Yeah, I think that's probably more realistic. And you need guys like that in your offense.
And I like how he said in a bunch of interviews what he's working on in the offseason is his route tree. That's something of his game. Like, listen, he doesn't want to just be known as the yak guy, and that's it. Just a gadget guy. He wants to really perfect his routes and get separation. And if he can really perfect that, bro, watch out. Okay, watch the heck out. Malachi freaking Corley is a New York Jet. Do you think he's going to wear 17? What number do you got for Corley?
I would kind of like him in 0, but Allen might wear 0, right?
Allen is going to wear 0. I would assume, because
he would look really, Allen would look really cool in 0. So I'm good with that. But 17 is a good number. I think that's a solid prediction. What did he wear in college?
11.
11. Okay. Yeah.
Obviously and 18.
Wear 11. Yeah. 17 looks nice. I mean, obviously Garrett changed his number, so I'm good with him passing the torch. I just don't want to see like 24. Sometimes we see these receivers now take numbers in the 20s and like just bad aura. Does not vibe with me.
No, thank you. I think Agent 0 is going to be this guy, Braelon Allen. I want to get your thoughts of Mr. Braelon Allen as a Jet man. This was a draft crush. I was live on the Talking Jets show for the reaction when we drafted Braelon Allen. I was very fortunate. How about that timing to be live with you and the boys when the Jets drafted Braelon Allen? And I remember Green Bean was like, "Who do you want, Richie?" I was like, "Braelon Allen, man, Braelon Allen." Green Bean's like, "Me too." And then they actually drafted him. So that was really freaking awesome. And the reason why I wanted him, man, is Douglas loves to draft running backs every year, and he was the guy in the mid-rounds I loved. He's 6'2", 240, bro. I mean, they don't build running backs like him. He can absolutely rip defenders off of him. Shed tackles, keep his balance upright, go downhill. He's not a home run hitter, even though he can take it the distance. But I feel like this is going to add a new anger and a new violence on top of Malachi Corley to this offense. I think the Jets are trying to formulate a new identity, maybe go less of like speed zone and go more man concepts in terms of running the football down your throat. So what are your thoughts of Braelon Allen as a Jet? And what can you expect from him as a rookie and how they're going to really balance out this whole backfield?
Yeah, so I don't anticipate him being very involved as a pass catcher. I think his strength is going to be when they're down on the goal line, pound it in. When it's 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, give him the rock and let him pick it up. When they have a lead late, which is something that they were planning on last year, unfortunately that didn't happen. But this year, I expect them to lead more games, and they're going to have to close out games. And you're right. I think they are changing up schematically how they're going to want to run. Not as much outside zone. It's going to be more inside. And Braelon Allen is a downhill runner. And when he's at his best, he's just running over people and using his size for good.
Couldn't agree more. Barney with the $2. No more if we stay healthy. Jets are deep now. I like this. We are prepared for the injury bug. Hopefully the injury bug will not be infecting this team. I mean, come on. Can we finally have some luck here? Go in our favor for once. This would be the year for that. But luckily for the Jets, they have definitely prepared for the worst possible scenarios of getting injured. Barney, thank you so much for the $2 super chat, my friend. Really do appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button on your way into the show. We appreciate each and every single one of you guys tuning into what we're doing here on the Jets Roundtable. Guys, we've been very active on Roundtable Sports' social media. If you guys want to give us a follow on Roundtable Sports, we just launched a brand new logo and our new branding over there at Roundtable Sports. So I would appreciate it if you guys can go over to Roundtable Sports on Twitter and maybe on Instagram. Check us out. Shoot us a follow. Really trying to build something over here. We're live on Twitter. Look at us, Matt. We're live right there on Twitter. How about that? It's a beautiful site, man. And the reason why I want to show this off is I wanted to get your thought, Matt, of of the draft grades from the AFC East Roundtable crew of our team. So here it is. So, guys, if you want to go shoot us a follow, it's at RoundtableSN, and on Instagram, it's at roundtable.sports. So we appreciate it. So this is the grades for the New York Jets from the AFC East Roundtable crew. Pretty generous outside of, I guess, Patriots Global's just a Jets hater.
But I even think B is that unfair. 3 A minuses and a B, like that's. I think if you're somewhere between the B plus is what I settled on, so I split the difference there. A minus is a touch more optimistic than I am about it, but I think you can make a case for it, and it's always cool to see the divisional opponents, right? Like the Bills, the Dolphins, the Pats representation and what they think on it. Obviously, Dolphins and a Bills representation here high on what the Jets have done in the draft, but even Patriots Global with the B, like that's solid. And that's how I feel coming away from this draft class. The Jets had a solid draft. I think we're going to look back on it in a few years and they'll have a couple starters, some depth pieces, which is nice. I don't know if they're going to get any all pros out of it. I hope they do. But if they just come up with some solid play here, I'm in on that.
What are your thoughts of the Patriots draft class? If you had to just think of a grade off the top of your head, I know we don't have the full class on the board, but how do you think the Patriots did with getting Drake May, double dipping at wide receiver, and how do you think they did for their new era without Bill Belichick?
Yeah, I think I'm around the B. I think it started well. After that, I have to go back and really look at the full class, but there were some things on day 3 that I didn't love as much. The double dip on receiver was necessary. Taking the quarterback, I think, was necessary. So I think
dipping at quarterback. I can't believe they got Joe Milton.
Yeah, there we go. I didn't love double dipping on with Joe Milton. I'm not a big Joe Milton fan. So that probably is what makes it a B for me.
And how do you like the Bills? They trade out of the first round. They get Keon Coleman at the top, right? So what are your thoughts of Keon Coleman as a prospect and how he's going to fit in with what the Buffalo Bills are going to do, and overall any other players that you saw them draft that you liked or didn't like?
So I hate that I have to root against Keon Coleman because I've absolutely loved every single video that's come out from him since he's got in Buffalo. The press conference with the jacket, him running on the field, like he just seems like such a genuine and likable guy. I thought they handled it a little strange. I didn't like that they traded back with the Chiefs in the draft because like you're gift wrapping the guy that they wanted, Xavier Worthy, to them, and that's the team that you can't beat. That's the team that you can't, get over in the playoffs. I really like their early on picks though. Like Keon Coleman's a guy who I think is going to fit well. The safety, Cole Bishop, I liked, and I think he was a good player. Dwayne Carter, an interior guy that I liked. So I think I'm going to settle on a B plus here for the Buffalo Bills. I think similar to the Jets, solid, added some depth, hit on some needs early on in this one.
And then last but not least, the Miami Dolphins going after Chop Robinson. I remember the Jets had him in for a visit, which caused chaos amongst Jets fans. What? Why are we visiting with Chop Robinson? Is this Will McDonald 2.0? And then they went out there, got Patrick Paul in the second round. And then they double dip at wide receiver, the Washington Twins. Later on, they trade up for Jalen Wright. I gave him a B minus. I might have been a little generous, but what's your thoughts of that Dolphins draft?
Yeah, I think probably I think I'm gonna end up settling on a B minus. So I understand why they went Chop Robinson after the injuries that they suffered at the edge spot. I like that one. I'm not the biggest Patrick Paul fan, so that one's going to be a little bit lower. Same with Jalen Wright for me, but I like the value that they got with Malik Washington. Taj Washington, I don't know if he really does it for me at the end, but again, that's a late pick. My favorite picks for them were Chop and Malik. I think the mid round was slightly underwhelming, so that lowers it for me to a B minus. I don't think I'd go as low as a C minus like Dan has, but if you want to say C plus or B minus, I think that's probably a fair range. It was an okay draft.
Yeah, I think the thing that the Dolphins fan base are upset about, it's felt more like a long-term draft rather than a short-term. They didn't fix their offensive line. They didn't draft one offensive line. And you talk about paying Tua, they didn't draft one inside, right? They got Patrick Paul as a tackle, but interior offensive line, they need some help, and they traded up for a running back. So we shall see. That's the draft for the Miami Dolphins standpoint, and the Bills and the Patriots and the Jets. I think that there's a lot of good upside for a lot of these drafts. I happen to be a big fan of the entire AFC East and what they were able to do for the draft. Now, Matt, I did want to get your thoughts of some undrafted free agents that the New York Jets happen to bring in. Now, I got a graphic I'll pull up that has every single one. Bro, the Jets got crazy, though. They got too many to keep up with. So who are some guys that really stands out to you? Because we all know that the Jets have been pretty successful when it comes to their undrafted free agents under Joe Douglas, Bryce Huff, Kenny Yeboah, Tony Adams. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But what's your thoughts about these undrafted free agents and any guys that really stand out to you the most?
Yeah, the first one there, Leonard Taylor, is someone who at this time last year, some thought he could be a first round pick. But even going into the draft, he was someone that ended up getting graded out to be like potentially a fourth round pick. So him not getting drafted at all was surprising. And there's some concern, right? Like for someone's stock dropping that much, I think it's valid to have some concern level there. But if there was ever a place for him to succeed, I think it would be next to Quinnen Williams or going under Quinnen Williams's wing and having, White Cotton as your positional coach and Ulbrich as your defensive coordinator and Saleh as your head coach. Like, I think for him to have his best chance of succeeding in the NFL, I think going to the Jets is a good one. I also like McGregor out of Michigan, the edge rusher. I think he really has a good motor. And they kind of need a little bit more depth at edge after losing JFM. So was surprised that they didn't draft an edge, but maybe McGregor as the undrafted guy is someone that could make some noise in training camp.
Yeah, I like the three defensive linemen they got. Watts from UConn,
Yeah,
McGregor. Those three guys were on Connor Rogers' top 300, and I value Connor Rogers a lot from his opinion on the draft. And if there was a position that I was shocked that Jets didn't draft, Matt, it was defensive line, especially from the John Franklin Myers trade. So I think that the Jets got potentially at least one guy out of those three in Taylor, McGregor, or Watts that can honestly make this team. We saw Bryce Huff do it. I don't see why that. Now, Leonard Taylor, I made a video on him. The biggest issue is his motor and his laziness. But hey, bro, people talked about him as a first round pick heading into this year of college football. And then this year, he was projected fourth or fifth rounder. So if you get him in undrafted free agency with the Jets coaching staff, it is definitely worth that. And then outside of that, I don't know. A lot of people are asking me to do a video on Pee Wee Jarrett, the quarterback we brought in. I got to do homework on him. I did not dive into him yet, but I like his name.
Great name, elite name. If quarterbacks were
Hits
hits or busts based off their name, he would be a Hall of Famer.
And I low-key think we're going to see a lot of him because Jordan Travis is hurt. So I don't think we're going to see him in OTAs and training camp early on. So Pee Wee Jarrett could be quarterback 3 in camp and like be the guy in the preseason until we cut him, obviously. Like he's obviously not making the team.
I
But I
was
think
gonna
we're going to see
say,
him a lot.
yeah, I was gonna say fourth preseason game, second half. That screams Pee Wee Jarrett time.
He's like the new Strevler. I feel like Jets fans are going to love this guy. I don't know why. I don't know anything about him. I just know his name is cool, and I know how Jets fans get with a no-name quarterback like a Chris Strevler.
The Yeah, this is what I thought the Jets were going to do, unfortunately, last year with Tim Boyle. When they signed him, I was like, yeah, this guy's not really all that good. But, I mean, someone has to play in these preseason games. And then he ended up making the roster and starting, unfortunately.
Oh my
But who
gosh.
knows? Maybe Pee Wee starts some games this year. They have to go all the way down to quarterback 4.
Oh my gosh.
I hope not.
I will be selling or retiring from my YouTube channel if I have to see Pee Wee Jarrett on the football field. Gosh almighty. Now, what's your philosophy on why did the Jets draft 2 running backs? Because that's the big question. Isaiah Davis pick was very questionable. Why did they get Davis? You already have Izzy. You have Brees. You already drafted Braelon Allen. So have you figured out why the Jets did that? Or are you still head scratching it?
Still scratching my head. I don't agree with the philosophy on it. He's very similar stylistically to Braelon Allen, another big back. To his credit, is a good pass protector. So the Jets running backs really struggled with that last year, whether it was Brees, Izzy, Michael Carter, Dalvin Cook. None of them were really all that good at it. So maybe that's like they were just scarred by how bad they were last year. They wanted to get someone who was decent at it. And again, he's more of a downhill runner and not an outside zone guy. And Izzy is more of an outside zone guy. So maybe they're phasing him out. That would be kind of strange after 1 year, but I guess it's a possibility at that point. I think they're going to carry 4 running backs. They did that last year. I think they're going to have 4 make the roster, but I'm going to be honest. That was probably my least favorite pick. I didn't love going back to running back in that spot.
And then what are your thoughts of getting the story of the draft, you can argue, the CFL star, Quantez Stigers from the Toronto Agronauts, I believe. Listen, if there's one position that I have a lot of confidence in the Jets to coach up, it's the secondary, man. Let's not forget how the Jets beat the Eagles last year with no Sauce, no DJ Reed, no Eccles, right? We had Craig James and like Bryce Hall, and we won that game. And the defense had a big reason for it. The Jets have an excellent coaching staff, especially, in the secondary. So if there was a position that I feel confident the Jets to develop like late round picks, it's definitely the secondary as well as the whole defense, really, but the secondary in particular. So what are your thoughts of Mr. Irrelevant Jalen Key and Quantez Stigers as well? Do either of them have a chance to make the roster and provide depth at those spots?
Yeah, I mean, safety is definitely a spot where they needed more help in. I love Quantez's story. I think it's really interesting, and he's someone who maybe can play a little bit of safety at the next level, which the Jets love that on day 3. I feel like every year, just about, they take a corner who they plan on converting to safety. They did it with Pinnock. They did it with Jarek Bernard-Converse, and they might very well do it again here. Kind of like that ball hawk. He had 5 interceptions last year in the CFL. I give him a little bit of a better chance than Jalen Key, I think. Key's a little bit of an older prospect. And he doesn't really do a whole lot that jumps out to me. I mean, both these guys are late round picks, and you never know. There's a chance, but if you're asking me now, I think Quantez probably has a better chance of having a little bit of an impact on this team. Jalen, I'd be surprised if he did.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Tony Adams, our starting free safety, was undrafted. Jalen Key, I don't want to call him undrafted, but very close, right? I mean, you're as close as undrafted as you can get to Jalen Key. So the Jets know how to get undrafted free agents and pick the later rounds to develop them. You know, there's other guys they brought in last year, Jarek Bernard-Converse, who was injured, who I think is an interesting piece to watch this year in OTAs and training camp. Now that he's healthy, could he be a guy that could play safety corner, just providing depth? Bryce Hall is no longer a member of the Jets. Just looking at it from a depth standpoint at that secondary spot, it's going to be intriguing to see what this Jets team looks like. Now, to wrap things up here, Matt, like, we went into the draft without any glaring holes, and we kind of felt like we had some fun. Now, after the draft, you look at the roster, like, what's your level of excitement for this Jets season before the draft, and now that we're past the draft, looking at this roster, them filling in holes, adding depth in certain spots, right? Like, there's going to be a lot of buzz around this football team heading into it. And we also got to see, I want to get your thoughts of Flight 24. Shout out to you being featured on it in episode 1. That was a cool little feature, right?
That was awesome. Yes, they got me.
Both of us out of our elements.
I know they screwed us, man. Signing Tyron Smith at like 9:00 at night on a Friday. I was like, hold on, I gotta do a video. Please hold off a second here.
So great.
But yeah, they do such a good job. The first 2 episodes of Flight have been really good. I loved the inside look at how they handled the draft in the most recent episode. But looking at this roster, I think they're in a really good spot. You know, going into the draft, I wanted them to get, you know, another wide receiver, another offensive lineman. They did both those things. They added developmental quarterback. You could nitpick and find spots like, are there question marks at safety? Yeah, there probably are. Same on the interior defensive line, maybe even interior offensive line. But overall, I think this is about as close as you can get. This is one of the better rosters in the NFL. I would say a top 5 roster in the league.
How many wins, Matt? I know we got the schedule to come out next to really give you the real win prediction, but what's your gut telling you, man?
Yeah, I think I'm going to end up settling on 11. And I think 11 might be enough to win this division. I think they're going to be a very, very good team. Jets haven't won 11 games in a long time, since 2010, the last time they made the playoffs. My way too early prediction, I think, is going to be 11-6 for the Jets this year.
Sign me up. AFC East champs. Matt O'Leary predicted it first. Guys, we're going to wrap up the show here. Thank you to everybody tuning in for another Jets Roundtable show. Shout out to Matt for holding it down here with me on the channel. I'm about to be live with Rich Cimini on Jets Media to break down the Jets draft class in 10 minutes on Jets Media. That's going to be a fun little show. Matt, anything you want to let the people know what you got cooking up on Talking Jets or Matt O'Leary's channel for the weekend, and anything else you want to let the people know about?
Yeah, so I'll be on with Jeremy over on the Talking Jets channel at 3:00 today. This week I've been talking to different college beat reporters about our draft class so far. I've had 2 come out, one on Braelon Allen. Earlier today, the Malachi Corley one came out, which is a really good conversation. I have a conversation set up next week on Monday to do Penn State beat reporter, talk some Olu. Still looking for a Florida State guy to talk some Jordan Travis, but be on the lookout for those deep dives into the prospects coming out too.
Deep dive into the prospects. Matt, thank you so much for joining, guys. Don't forget to subscribe to Matt O'Leary. His YouTube channel is linked down below in the description. This was the Jets Roundtable presented by Roundtable Sports on the AFC's Roundtable YouTube channel. Salute to the chat. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.